Hi there, and thank you for joining us. My name is Jason Taylor. I am the Vice President of Client Success with Huddle Up, formerly known as .com Therapy. And I am honored to be joined today by Dominique Alexander, who's the Director of Special Education with Fort Smith Public Schools in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Dominique, thank you very much for joining us.
Hello, Jason. Thank you so much for having me.
We're very pleased for you to be here. I think maybe a good place to start is if you could give us just a brief overview of your district, maybe the demographics, the size, number of schools, enrollment, just any unique characteristics, just a little snapshot of your district would be great.
Sure. We are, of course, Fort Smith Public School District. We are located in what's considered to be the River Valley of Arkansas. And we serve 1,400 students, 14,000 students. 2,100 of those students are students who receive special education services. Our district is comprised of 26 schools, 19 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, 3 high schools, one of which is our alternative learning center, and we have a virtual school.
Wow, that's a large district, lots of students to have responsibility for sure. So how long has your district worked with Huddle Up?
So we made a year, October of 23. We started with Huddle Up in October of 2022.
Excellent. Okay, so a little over a year and a half or so.
Mhm.
So maybe we can start at the beginning. I'd love to hear how you individually, as well as your organization collectively, initially reached the decision to engage with Huddle Up in the first place.
You know what? It's funny that you asked this question. It started with an email that went to our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources because we had openings for speech therapists here in our district. And so he received the email, sent it over, and he said, "Hey, I don't know too much about this company, but it may be something that you want to look into." And so I sent an email and got a phone call from the most amazing lady by the name of Ashley. And she began to work with us, myself and the assistant director here, Dr. Tanika Tate. And so we had a Zoom call. She listened to our concerns, issues, and she reassured us that Huddle Up could support us in meeting the needs of our students here in our district. And so it was basically just listening to her talk about the services that Huddle Up provided. What I could hear was that there was an understanding of the needs that we had here in our district, which was for speech therapy. So you understand the practice of speech therapy. And then there was also a genuine spirit of wanting to support our school district, support our students. And so in that, we knew that Huddle Up was a good fit for our district.
Excellent. So it sounds like there was some good conversation and digging or discovery, maybe is the best word, into the specific challenges that you were facing, right?
Most definitely.
Why you were interested in speaking with us. So how much experience did you and the district have with teletherapy prior to working with Huddle Up?
So I would say maybe back in 2011 and 12, prior to coming to Arkansas, I worked in another state in a very rural school district. And so it was very hard to staff speech therapists in that area. And so I did use another company to provide those services. So I had previous experience working with, or prior experience working with a company that provided teletherapy.
Excellent. So I'm curious if there was any apprehension among the staff, the districts, your district staff, about teletherapy prior to using it? Was it other people's first time? Was the experience with us the first time that they were exposed to teletherapy?
Most certainly. So prior to coming here, most of the schools were staffed with in-person therapists. And so when we were looking to fill the need, it was just there were discussions about filling those positions with teletherapists. And so of course there was some apprehension because what does that look like? How are we going to staff that? Are the students going to go in, by themselves? And so we did have those conversations. But Huddle Up has done an amazing job. The therapists that we have been provided, they have been able to jump right in because therapists do exactly what they do. They treat. And so they have done an amazing job with that. And we are so pleased with the services that we've been provided.
Well, we love to hear that, for sure. So thank you. And may I infer that the apprehension was quelled once the service got up and running, and those folks that might have been a little apprehensive once they saw it in action were okay with it?
Some Somewhat, because everyone doesn't get a chance to see. The students go in and they have a monitor or paraprofessional who goes in with them
Mhm.
to be able to support the therapist. But we have had some principals who've actually sat in on sessions to see how things were going with the students, and they have been pleasantly surprised to see how those therapy sessions play out. To see the students engaged, to see the therapist working with the students. So yes, I can say that yes, a lot of those feelings of apprehension are now just amazement at how well our students are doing.
Excellent, thank you. So that's a nice background, I guess, on the process leading up to beginning to work with us. So you make the decision to move forward with us. How would you characterize the onboarding process as far as getting up to speed and actually rubber meeting the road and getting students in session?
So that was easy. And I would say easy in that we had a scheduled meeting with Taylor. And so in that meeting, we discussed just what it would look like, what we would need. And so on our end, there were some things that we needed to put in place to make sure that we had the paraprofessionals to be able to support the students, to make sure that the technology was there for the students. But outside of that, it was just discussions, and it was us providing information so that they will know who the contact people would be in the building, just putting things in place so that a process could be there to get things going. So I would say fairly easy. It was easy.
That's
And
fantastic.
working with Taylor makes it easy.
We
Yeah.
like to hear that as well. So the initial partnership from a caseload perspective, I think started at a couple full-time equivalents back in the fall of 2022. And now we're up to a much larger caseload. I think there are in the high teens, 17 or 18
Mhm.
full-time equivalents, which is fantastic growth. And I'm just curious, the factors, can you tell us a little bit about the factors that led to that
Sure.
growth?
So initially, we had, I want to say maybe, like you said, 3 or 4 therapists who were supporting us in the district. And again, we started in October of last school year. And so over the course of the school year, we lost some contractual therapists, and we also had some therapists to retire. We had some therapists to move to other states here. And so as a result of those losses, we saw an even greater deficit. And so we knew that we were going to have to request additional resources or support to assist us in providing speech therapy to the students here in our district.
Got it. So how would you describe the day-to-day process of working with Huddle Up? So, the day in, day out tasks, whether it's adding students to the caseload or working through provider access to your systems or ensuring district policies are being followed, those things. Can you say anything about that process of working with us?
So some of the therapists that we had last year, they came back. And so because of that, we had some people who knew how to do things, I would say maybe the Fort Smith way. For the newer therapists that came on board with us this year, there is I don't know if I want to call it a thread, but there's an area where if therapists have questions or concerns, they can ask. As far as how we do things here, we have coordinators who have feeder patterns. They support the speech therapists the same way that they support the teachers. And so if there's needing access to the management system, they provide the access, they provide them with caseloads. We have monthly compliance meetings to where those therapists are invited to those sessions, to where we talk about compliance, we talk about paperwork. And so we do have a secretary who works here in the office. If any of the therapists need, because of course they are online, and so they aren't in the building to get those signatures, to get the paperwork to the parents. And so we do have someone here in the office who supports them with that if the coordinators don't do that for them. And so we treat them as if they are with us here in person, and the principals do too. We have some principals who make sure that they're included in the weekly blast, and so they are made to feel a part of their school communities as well.
Excellent.
Mhm.
Excellent. Thank you. So now you're at the point, year and a half or a little more in as far as working with us. I'm curious to know how working with us compares to the expectations that you might have had before you started working with us.
So in the initial conversation with Ashley, I was excited because I kept saying, you get it, you get us, you understand us. But it wasn't until I had an opportunity to go through the onboarding process to where we really got a chance to talk about the training on the website. There's training that's provided for staff that we can push that out if we'd like. There's also resources for parents. There is an introduction letter that goes out to parents to make them aware of the therapist that's going to be working with their child. And so when you begin to look at all those things, it's the little things that makes Huddle Up that sets them apart from the rest. And so as a result of that, I mean, my expectations, I was just blown away because you don't have other companies who do that. They don't bring that to the table. And so for parents to get a letter with the therapist's face on it and it tells them about themselves, you don't get that with other companies. And Huddle Up does that. They provide that extra service. Parents get, if you want to know the research behind teletherapy and how it works well for students, there's information on the website about that as well. And so I just think those little added touches just really helps to bring home the idea of teletherapy being something that can work for our students or for a parent for your child.
Excellent. That's very well said. And I will give you credit because the very next question I was going to ask you was how you rate the value of Huddle Up services for your students and their parents. But I think you just summed that up brilliantly. So we can move right past that. Um, so maybe the word value is a good pivot here to the next step of the story to understand what Huddle Up's report card looks like, right? So I'm curious to know about the outcomes or improvements that you've observed since implementing our services. Our clients, through client surveys, many of our clients have reported results, positive results in areas like increased engagement, improved academic performance, reductions in teacher burnout and classroom disruptions and things like that. I'm curious what you and your staff has observed in those areas.
So for us, I would say that it helps with um, the need right now for us for speech therapists. So in our buildings where we may have had two therapists in the past, we now have a need for sometimes three therapists, depending on the schedules, to be able to support students. And so in that, our teachers know that they have someone who's going to provide that additional support. They have therapists who understand the paperwork. They understand how the evaluation portion. So being able to screen students. So if there are students who are presenting speech delays or some type of speech deficits, they have someone in the building that they can send an email to or send information to. They know that those students are going to be screened. There's going to be an assessment. There'll be someone to sit in on their meetings. And so I think for them, knowing that they have that partner who works with them to support the process or to support the program in providing those services, that's key. One of the things that I would love to share was a building principal who was skeptical about services for a student. And so I was visiting in the building and she said, Alexander, I thought I was going to have to call you and tell you that we were going to need an in-person therapist. She said, because this student was presenting challenging behaviors and I was afraid to send him into the space. She said, but I went in with him and to see the therapist work with him, to see how he responded to her, she said, I absolutely love this company and I love what they're doing for our students. And so hearing her say that meant the world to me because I was nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to find someone to be able to fill this need? But knowing that we were able to still provide that child with the services that they needed, and it was done on a virtual platform was just all I needed to hear.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. And often in conversations like this, it's easy to talk about the service and the impact at a macro level. Hearing an individual story about an individual person, an individual student, in my opinion, has that much more impact. So that's great. Thank you
It
for sharing
does.
that. So I'm curious, what advice would you give to one of your peers, maybe in another district, regarding the use or the impact of teletherapy?
I would say to anyone who's facing the challenges of finding speech therapists or finding someone to provide the supports that you need in your district, I would say give it a try. Nothing hurts to call to have a conversation, because like for me, it all began with a conversation.
Mhm.
It was me wanting to find out, what services do you provide? How can you fill the need in our district? And I would have to say, if I use one word to describe Huddle Up, it would be responsive. They heard my cry for help and they responded with exceptional support. I cannot say anything better about the support that we have been provided. And so for us to be able to fill that need with a company who cares, because they really do care about the needs of our students, the needs of our families. And so that means the world to me. And you would want to partner with someone who shares the same values that you share as it relates to providing quality service to students and families. So try it.
That's fantastic. And I love the one word responsive. I will absolutely share that internally. So
Thank you.
Dominique, thank you very much. I've enjoyed the conversation and I've enjoyed hearing the Fort Smith story sort
Thank
of from
you.
beginning to end. And we're super excited to continue working with you and supporting you going forward.
Same here. We're super excited to be partners, and we just look forward to just years and years of being able to work with Huddle Up.
Fantastic. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you.